Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to dive deep, into the history of the Chola dynasty of southern India.
Sounds good.
And, you might not realize it, but the Cholas were one of the few empires in history
Oh, wow.
to dominate both land and sea.
Interesting.
So we're going to unpack their journey from, these humble beginnings to becoming this, major power.
Yeah.
Using the Wikipedia article you sent over.
Great.
Get ready for, epic battles, incredible architecture, and a cultural scene that still resonates today.
What's fascinating about the Cholas is that despite their long history, we're talking centuries,
Right.
there were times they faded into the background only to reemerge even stronger. It makes you wonder how they pulled that off.
Okay, so let's go back to their beginnings.
Sure.
The Wikipedia article mentions early references to the Cholas way back in the 3rd century BCE. That's around the time of Ashoka's Mauryan Empire, right?
Yes, the Ashokan edicts placed the Cholas as a distinct political entity south of the Mauryan Empire.
Okay.
They weren't under Ashoka's rule, but they were on friendly terms with him.
So like allies.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's an early glimpse of their existence as an independent force.
So at this point, they weren't a major player yet.
No.
More like a regional power.
Exactly. Think of them as one of the three crowned kings of Tamilakam.
Okay.
Alongside the Chera and Pandya dynasties.
Okay.
They controlled territories, but they also faced periods of being overshadowed by their rivals.
It sounds like southern India had its own version of Game of Thrones going on.
You could say that.
But things really cook off in the 9th century CE with Vijayalaya.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about him?
This is where the Chola story takes a dramatic turn. Vijayalaya was descended from the Telugu Cholas.
Okay.
A branch that had migrated centuries earlier. And he revived Chola power, starting a new era for the dynasty.
Wow.
It's a remarkable comeback story.
Wait, Telugu Cholas? I thought the Cholas were based in Tamil Nadu.
Right?
How did they end up in the Telugu region?
It seems during a period of weakness, a branch of the Cholas migrated and became chieftains under the pull of a dynasty.
Interesting.
Vijayalaya emerges from this branch, eventually returning to reclaim their ancestral homeland and reassert their power.
Talk about a triumphant return.
Definitely.
Did his successors continue expanding the Chola territory?
Absolutely. Aditya and Parantaka, Vijayalaya's successors, solidified Chola power.
Okay.
They forged strategic alliances and won decisive victories against powerful rivals like the Pallavas and the Rashtrakutas.
Wow.
It's a period of intense military expansion and consolidation for the Cholas.
So they're building an empire piece by piece using both military might and political savvy?
That's right.
But it's not until Rajaraja I and his son Rajendra come along that things really explode onto the world stage, right?
Precisely. The late 10th and early 11th centuries marked the golden age of the Cholas.
Okay.
Under these rulers, their empire reaches its zenith, stretching across South Asia and even into Southeast Asia.
Wow.
It's a truly vast and impressive territory.
That's incredible. How did they manage to achieve such dominance?
Well,
were they just incredible military strategists?
Military strength was certainly a factor. They built a powerful army.
Yeah.
And this is where they really stand out, a formidable navy.
A navy?
Yes.
I thought most empires at this time were focused on land-based expansion.
Most were.
What made the Cholas invest in sea power?
That's what makes them so unique. The Cholas recognized the strategic importance of the sea. Their naval dominance allowed them to conquer Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and even parts of what are now Malaysia and Indonesia.
Wow. Projecting power across oceans like that is a huge undertaking.
Absolutely.
The logistics alone are mind-boggling.
It was a massive effort.
What did those expeditions involve?
Imagine crossing vast oceans, battling unfamiliar enemies in distant lands, and establishing control over far-flung territories.
Yeah.
It required incredible skill planning and resources.
It really highlights how innovative they were for their time. They weren't just conquering, they were building a truly maritime empire.
Exactly.
And they also had a reputation for being skilled administrators, right?
Yes.
I mean, managing such a vast empire must have required serious organizational skills.
You're absolutely right. The Cholas weren't just about brute force. They developed a sophisticated system of governance to manage their vast holdings.
Okay.
They also fostered trade and formed strategic alliances, which contributed to their stability and economic prosperity.
So they weren't just conquerors, but empire builders in the truest sense.
I would agree with that.
And they were patrons of the arts as well.
Yes.
The Brisadiswar Temple is a prime example of their architectural achievements, right?
The Brisadiswar Temple, built by Rajaraja I in Thanjavur, is a masterpiece of Dravidian architecture.
Okay.
A style native to South India that's characterized by its towering pyramid-shaped structures. This particular temple, built entirely of granite, wasn't just about size. It was a statement of power meant to be the tallest temple in India at the time.
Wow.
A symbol of Chola dominance you could see for miles around.
It's amazing to think this temple built over 1,000 years ago is still standing today.
I know, it's incredible.
And it wasn't just architecture. The Chola period is considered a golden age for Tamil culture. What drove this flourishing of art and literature?
The Chola court was a hub for poets, writers, and scholars. They patronized these artists, leading to a surge in Tamil literature works like the Rajaraja, Natakam Virandakavyam, and Tanivana all emerged during this period.
It sounds like they cultivated a vibrant cultural scene alongside their political and military achievements. They had it all.
It was a remarkable period.
So they've built this incredible empire, but empires need more than military strength, right?
Of course.
Let's look at how the Cholas governed their vast territories. You mentioned they had a sophisticated administration.
Yes.
What made it so unique compared to other empires at the time?
Well, what's remarkable is that the Chola administration was highly decentralized.
Okay.
Instead of trying to control everything from the capital, they empowered local communities to govern themselves
Interesting.
to a significant degree.
That's an interesting point, but wouldn't a decentralized system also create potential problems?
Potentially, yes.
How did they prevent local leaders from becoming too powerful or independent?
That's where the Chola bureaucracy comes into play.
Okay.
They had a complex system of officials and meticulous record-keeping
Wow.
to monitor those local councils. Think of it this way. Royal inspectors would regularly visit different parts of the empire, kind of like internal auditors making sure things were running smoothly.
I see.
They'd check on the administration, collect taxes, and address any grievances.
So it was a delicate balancing act,
Yes.
giving local communities autonomy while maintaining oversight from the central government.
Exactly.
But how do we actually know so much about the intricate details of their administration?
The Cholas were pioneers in using inscriptions to record their decisions and accomplishments.
Okay.
These inscriptions, often found on temple walls and copper plates, provide a wealth of information about their governance, tax system, land ownership, and even social hierarchy.
It's like they left behind a detailed instruction manual for how to run an empire.
In a way, they did.
But what about their religious practices?
Yes.
The Wikipedia article mentions they were followers of Hinduism.
Right.
But did they tolerate other faiths?
Yes, the Cholas were primarily Hindu rulers,
Okay.
but they generally practiced religious tolerance.
Okay.
While they constructed magnificent temples dedicated to Shiva and Vishnu,
Yeah.
they also patronized Jain and Buddhist institutions. There are records of Chola kings granting land and making donations to various religious communities, demonstrating their inclusivity.
So it was a diverse religious landscape with different faiths coexisting relatively peacefully. That's pretty impressive for that time period.
It really is, and it likely contributed to their overall stability. By respecting the beliefs of their subjects, they were able to avoid a lot of the religious conflicts that often plagued other empires.
Okay, so we've got a pretty good picture of their administration and religious landscape, but we haven't talked much about their military achievements yet. I'm particularly curious about their navy. You mentioned earlier that they conquered parts of Southeast Asia. How did they manage to project their power so far across the ocean?
It boils down to their impressive shipbuilding skills and naval strategy. They constructed large, sturdy ships that could carry hundreds of soldiers and sailors across long distances.
Do we know anything about the specifics of their ship design? Were they similar to, say, European ships at the time?
Not quite. Chola ships were more like massive seafaring vessels with multiple decks and sails.
Okay.
They were designed for both warfare and trade, and were remarkably advanced for their time.
Wow.
Some historians believe they even had rudimentary forms of cannons and other naval weaponry.
Wow, that's incredible. It's clear they invested heavily in their navy. It seems like it paid off in spades, giving them control over key trade routes and allowing them to acquire vast wealth. They weren't afraid to take risks either, were they?
Absolutely. Their most famous naval expedition was led by Rajendra Chola I against the Shivajaya Empire in Southeast Asia. It was a bold move, showcasing their ambition and military capabilities.
And it was a success.
Indeed, Rajendra Chola's forces sacked the Shivajayan capital, bringing back vast treasures to India. It cemented their reputation as a formidable naval power and expanded their influence far beyond the Indian subcontinent. This one expedition highlights so much about what made the Cholas successful: strategic vision, military skill, technological advancement, and a willingness to push boundaries.
And their naval exploits weren't limited to Southeast Asia, right?
Correct.
They were active in other regions as well.
That's right. They also had campaigns against the Sinhalese in Sri Lanka. What's truly fascinating is that they even sent diplomatic missions as far as China. It goes to show just how connected the world was even back then, and how the Cholas weren't content to stay within their borders. They actively engaged with the wider world through trade diplomacy, and sometimes conflict.
It makes you realize that history is full of surprises and that we can always learn something new by digging deeper into the past.
Absolutely.
I think we're nearing the end of our deep dive for today, though.
Yes, I believe we've covered a lot of ground exploring their beginnings, their rise to power, their administrative structure, their religious tolerance, and even their impressive maritime achievements.
But there's one key aspect of the Chola story we still need to address: their decline. Empires sadly don't last forever.
That's true.
We touched on it briefly before, but it's worth exploring what challenges they faced in their later years.
Yeah.
And what lessons we can learn from their eventual fall. So let's talk about the decline of the Cholas. What were some of the internal factors that weakened their empire?
Well, like many great empires, they faced challenges with succession as the Chola line went on. There were more and more disputes over who would inherit the throne.
Right.
These power struggles often led to instability and weakened the central authority.
The age-old problem of who gets to wear the crown. Seems like a recipe for trouble no matter what era you're in. Did this internal strife make them more vulnerable to outside threats?
Absolutely. Internal divisions often create opportunities for rivals. Remember the Tanias and the Hoysalas we talked about earlier? As the Cholas weakened from within, these rivals grew stronger and more aggressive.
Right.
They began to chip away at Chola territory and challenge their control.
It sounds like a classic case of enemies sensing weakness and taking advantage. And I imagine the once mighty Chola military wasn't quite what it used to be at this point.
You're right. Over time, the Chola military, including their renowned navy, started to decline. This was partly due to the financial strain of constant warfare and partly due to a lack of strong leadership in the later Chola period.
So they were stuck in a downward spiral.
Yeah.
Internal strife led to military decline, which in turn made them more susceptible to those external threats.
Unfortunately, yes.
It's a pattern we see repeated throughout history. Did they also face any economic challenges?
Maintaining an empire the size of the Cholases was incredibly expensive. As they lost territories and control over those lucrative trade routes, their treasuries started to shrink.
Right.
That further weakened their ability to maintain a strong military and hold on to their power.
So it's a cascade effect.
It is.
One problem leads to another, and pretty soon the whole structure becomes unstable. What was the final blow for the Chola dynasty?
By the late 13th century, they were a shadow of their former selves.
Wow.
Their territory was much reduced, their military was weakened, and their economy was in decline. In 1279, they were absorbed into the Pandyan Empire, marking the end of their independent rule.
It's a bittersweet ending to their incredible story.
Yes, it is.
They achieved so much, but even great empires eventually fall. What are some of the key takeaways we can learn from the rise and fall of the Cholas?
I think one of the biggest lessons is that even the most powerful empires are not invincible. They're susceptible to internal divisions, external threats, and economic challenges. The Cholas teach us that strength and resilience are crucial, but adaptability and unity are equally important if you want to survive for the long haul.
It's a powerful reminder that power is fleeting, and those who can't adapt to changing circumstances are likely to face decline. But their story isn't just a cautionary tale, it also highlights the incredible things they achieved.
Exactly. The Cholas weren't just conquerors. They were innovators in administration, skilled in diplomacy, and patrons of the arts. Their legacy lives on not just in their impressive temples and the literature they inspired, but in the impact they had on South Asian culture and beyond.
Well said. And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Chola dynasty. It's been an incredible journey through time, exploring a civilization that truly left its mark on the world.
It certainly has.
It's been a pleasure exploring the complexities of this fascinating dynasty with you.
Likewise.
And to our listeners, we hope you've gained a new appreciation for the Cholas, their achievements, and the lessons we can learn from their rise and fall. Until next time, keep exploring.
Whispers of the past in every page. Stories lost but now engaged. From ancient lands to empire's might, we journey through the fading light. Unlock the mysteries, tales untold. The forgotten pages, history unfolds with every episode. A new quest, delving deep, we seek the rest. Echoes of kings and queens arise.